On the 19th of March, the Department of Education announced it is handing 9.2 million defaulted student loan accounts to the Treasury Department. And if you have been anywhere near the internet since then, you have probably already absorbed the headline version of this story. Treasury takes over. Wage garnishment, tax refund seizure. It is over. That version feels true. It sounds like something the government would do, and parts of it are real. But I started pulling at the actual documents, the Interagency Agreement, the press call transcripts, the January delay notice. And what I found is a story that is more complicated, less apocalyptic, and in some ways more dangerous than the panic version. Because the real risk is not what the government does next, it is what you do not do in the next 60 days. Before I get into any of this, I want to be clear about something. I am not a financial advisor. I am not a lawyer. None of what I am about to walk through is personal advice for your specific loans. This is publicly available information about how the system works, organized in a way that might actually help you understand what is happening. What you do with it is your call. Now, let us start with the thing almost everyone got wrong. The headline said Treasury is taking over student loans. And a lot of people read that as the IRS is coming for my paycheck tomorrow morning. Social media did not help. Comment sections were full of people saying garnishment starts immediately, that the government is going to drain bank accounts, that there is nothing anyone can do. And this is where most people stop reading the bill. What actually happened is the Education Department signed a multi-phase interagency agreement. The first phase transfers collection authority on defaulted loans to Treasury. The second phase, which has not started, would move servicing of non-defaulted loans. Further phases involve other federal student aid functions, including FAFSA administration. What landed on the 19th of March was Phase 1, Defaulted Loans Collection Authority. That is it. And even within Phase 1, the timeline is not what the panic suggests. Back in December 2025, the Education Department announced it would restart involuntary collections. Wage garnishment through administrative wage garnishment, and tax refund seizure through the Treasury Offset Program. Starting the week of the 7th of January, 2026, that was the plan. Then on the 16th of January, 9 days later, the Education Department reversed course, delayed involuntary collections. The stated reason, according to the department's own press release, was to give borrowers more time while new repayment plans rolled out under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, with the repayment assistance plan set to launch the 1st of July 2026. So as of right now, in April 2026, involuntary collections on defaulted federal student loans have not resumed. Garnishment has not restarted. The Treasury Offset Program for tax refunds has been paused. That is the current status. Nobody posts about this on social media. The correction never travels as fast as the scare. But here is why I said this is more dangerous than the panic version. The pause is temporary. The word the Education Department used was delay, not cancel, not suspend indefinitely, delay. And now that Treasury has formal collection authority under the Interagency Agreement, the infrastructure to restart is in place. The question is not whether involuntary collections come back, it is when. And that when could arrive without a 90-day news cycle warning. It could arrive in a press release on a Thursday afternoon that most people will not read until the money is already moving. So the first hidden risk in this story is not garnishment itself. It is the assumption that the pause means you are safe. Let me put a number on what safe looks like for someone in default right now. Federal law allows the government to garnish up to 15% of your disposable income. Disposable income means what is left after legally required deductions, taxes, Social Security, Medicare. Not after rent, not after groceries, not after your car payment. After taxes on a salary of $50,000. 15% of disposable pay is roughly $460 a month. That is not a hypothetical. That is the statute. The Treasury Offset Program works differently. It intercepts federal payments owed to you, primarily your tax refund, but also certain federal benefits, and redirects them toward your defaulted debt. According to the IRS, the average federal tax refund for the 2025 filing season was about $3,167. For someone counting on that refund to cover a security deposit, a car repair, or 3 months of catching up on other bills, losing it overnight changes the math on everything. And here is the part that should make you sit with this for a second. These collection tools do not require a court order. Administrative wage garnishment for federal student loans skips the courthouse entirely. The government sends you a notice, gives you a window to object or propose a payment plan. And if you do not respond, garnishment begins. No judge. No hearing unless you request one. That is how the system is designed. It feels like getting a letter that your landlord changed the locks. Except the letter arrived 3 weeks ago, and you just found it under a pile of mail. Now, the second hidden risk, and this is the one I did not expect to find. The Fresh Start program, the one that let defaulted borrowers return to good standing with a single phone call or online request. No 9 months of payments, no hoops, ended the 30th of September, 2024. It is gone. If you missed it, you missed it. There is no extension. There is no equivalent program currently available. That matters because getting out of default in 2026 is harder than it was 18 months ago. The two remaining paths are loan rehabilitation and loan consolidation. Both work. Neither is instant. And most people in default do not know the difference between them, which means most people in default are one confused search away from doing nothing. Let me walk through both because the details here actually matter. Loan rehabilitation requires you to make 9 voluntary, on-time monthly payments within a 10-month window. The payment amount is based on your income, and it can be as low as $5 a month if your income qualifies. Once you complete the 9 payments, the default is removed from your credit report. That is the big advantage. The default notation disappears. Late payments before the default stay, but the default itself gets erased. You can only use rehabilitation once per loan. If you default again after rehabilitating, this door closes permanently. Loan consolidation is faster. You apply for a direct consolidation loan. Agree to a repayment plan such as the Repayment Assistance Plan launching July 2026, and your defaulted loans get rolled into a new loan in good standing. This can happen in weeks rather than months, but the default stays on your credit report. It does not get removed. The record of what happened remains, even though the new loan is technically current. Consolidation also resets the clock on income-driven repayment forgiveness, and your previous qualifying payments, if any, may not carry over depending on the plan. 2 paths, one slow and clean, one fast and scarred. And every institution with a financial stake in this process has a structural incentive to push you toward whichever option generates the most administrative billing. None of them lose money when you stay confused. That quiet, private math at 2 in the morning wondering which option is less bad, that is the part no headline covers. Here is where it gets personal. There is someone I want you to think about. Their name is Kai, 29 years old, living in Columbus, Ohio. Works in logistics coordination. Salary, $44,000 a year. Kai graduated in 2019 with $38,000 in federal loans. Started on a standard repayment plan, made payments for about a year. Then COVID hit and the payment pause began. For 3.5 years, Kai did not make a payment, not because of laziness, because the government said don't. When payments restarted, Kai's financial situation had changed. Higher rent, a used car loan, and credit card debt that accumulated during a period of underemployment in 2022. Kai missed the first 3 payments, then the 4th, then stopped opening the mail. By early 2025, the loans had been in default for over 270 days. Kai heard about Fresh Start in September 2024, but thought there was still time. There was not. The deadline passed. Kai is now one of 9.2 million. Kai has not bought anything unnecessary. Kai does not eat out. Kai's credit score dropped from 680 to 540 after the default hit. Kai was looking at apartments last month and got denied because the credit report showed a federal debt in collections. By any reasonable standard, Kai did what the system told them to do. Paused when the government said pause. Tried to restart when the government said restart. Missed a deadline the government barely advertised. And now the system offers 2 imperfect exits and a ticking clock on garnishment that could start with a press release nobody reads. Kai is not irresponsible. Kai is underwater in a system that changed the rules 3 times in 4 years. Now, the third risk, and this is the one that could actually be fatal to people's financial stability. The 2.4 million borrowers in late-stage delinquency. The 9.2 million number gets all the attention. But the Education Department also disclosed that 2.4 million additional borrowers are in late-stage delinquency, meaning they have missed payments but have not yet crossed the 270-day threshold into official default. These borrowers are in the hallway. The door behind them is closed. The door in front of them leads to the same room Kai is sitting in. But the math gets worse from here. If you are in late-stage delinquency right now and you do nothing for the next few months, you will cross into default, and once you are in default, the exit options I just described, rehabilitation and consolidation, become your only paths. But if you act while you are still delinquent before the 270-day mark, you have more options. You can switch repayment plans. You can apply for an income-driven plan. You can request a forbearance or deferment if you qualify. The system treats delinquent borrowers and defaulted borrowers as 2 entirely different categories of human beings. even though the distance between them might be 8 weeks of not opening an envelope. 8 weeks. That is the width of the line between having options and having two options. I was not looking for this number when I started researching this video. I was looking at the 9.2 million. But the 2.4 million might be the more urgent story. Because those borrowers still have time, and most of them do not know it. Your savings account is not the only thing with a balance that moves while you sleep. Your loan status has a countdown running in the background, and it does not send push notifications. It just crosses a line one day, and the letters start arriving from a different agency. So what does this actually mean? What are the real options right now? Let me lay them out, and I want to be precise, because vague advice in this space is worse than no advice. If you are currently in default, one of the 9.2 million, you have two paths to get out. Rehabilitation takes 9 months minimum, but removes the default from your credit history. Consolidation can happen in weeks, but leaves the default on your record. Both stop involuntary collections once you are enrolled and making payments. The Education Department's own site at studentaid.gov outlines both processes. Neither path requires a lawyer, neither requires paying anyone. If a company is charging you money to get your loans out of default, that is a red flag. If you are in late-stage delinquency, one of the 2.4 million, you have more options than you think. But the window is defined by the 270-day threshold. Call your loan servicer. Ask about income-driven repayment. Ask about deferment or forbearance. Ask what date your loans will cross into default if you take no action. Write that date down. Put it somewhere. You will see it. And if you are current on your payments and wondering whether the Treasury transfer changes anything for you, senior officials from both departments said on the 19th of March press call that borrowers in active repayment will see no change in their servicer or payment process. Your login stays the same. Your autopay stays the same. For now, I want to be honest about what I do not know. Nobody has announced a firm date for when involuntary collections restart. The January 2026 delay was described as temporary. The March 2026 transfer gave Treasury the authority to collect. But as of today, there is no public timeline for when garnishment and offset resume. That could change next week. It could change in the fall. The answer right now is genuinely unclear, and anyone who tells you they know the exact date is guessing. But the math of waiting is not unclear. Every month of inaction in default is another month of potential interest accrual. Another month closer to whenever collections restart. And another month where your credit report tells every landlord, every auto lender, and every employer who runs a background check that you have a federal debt in collections. The system was not designed to remind you, but now you know. And knowing the difference between a headline and a timeline, between a pause and a cancellation, between delinquent and default, that is not just information. That is the distance between reacting to a garnishment notice in August and making a phone call in April. You are not behind because you made bad choices. You are behind because the system moved the finish line while you were running.